Our New Testament lesson today comes from James 1, verses 17 through 27. Every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. In fulfillment of his own purpose, he gave us birth by the word of truth, so that we would become a kind of first fruits of his creatures. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourselves of all sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word, and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves and, on going away, immediately forget what they are like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongues, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. This is the word of the Lord. Wow. I had my choice today of two different passages from the New Testament. I selected that one. In hindsight, the Mark passage probably would have been a little simpler, but with God's help and a little help from Andrew, I think I made it through. 2 weeks from today, on September 16th, this church, we, will celebrate our 125th anniversary. 125 years here in Enid. 125 years of faithful service to one another and to the community that we serve. And what a joyous occasion, and what a year-long celebration it'll be. Not just one day in 2 weeks, but something where we celebrate the works of this church and this body for a full year, kicking off next Sunday night with a service that is, well, quite spine-tingling, if I say so myself. It's a celebration of this church, an ongoing congregation that has embodied what James is teaching us today in the gospel lesson. 125 years ago, the Reverend G.V. Albertson stood with his pulpit, which is here, right out there at the front of the church, and presided over the first service of the First Presbyterian Church of Enid. And now, here we are, 125 years later, and on this day, I'm standing before you. Today might be a little different than normal. This congregation has stood the test of time because of our works and deeds. It dawned on me as I thought I had this prepared that sometimes the gospel lesson comes not to teach us or to challenge us or to change us. Sometimes the gospel lesson comes to remind us that we are right on track and doing well in the eyes of the Lord. To that end, I want to take this moment to say thank you. It was roughly Advent in 2015 when I began singing with the chancel choir and attending services thanks to an invitation from Christiane Chase. I was hesitant. It had been almost 26 years since I had attended church, and my life was significantly different now than it was back then. I certainly was different. I'd have to reconcile some things from my past and wasn't sure if I would be welcomed at all. I was here through Christmas and took a break after that to focus on 2016's dinner theater, which was piano intensive. But I kept my promise of coming back after the show was over, and by summer 2016, I was attending regularly. I officially became a member of this congregation on July 31st, 2016. I still serve the choir and on the worship committee and have since I arrived here. I help and still help plan and lead worship through music. I have been grateful to have been given the honor by you to be trusted with setting up the Lord's table, a duty which is inexplicably important and meaningful to me. I have found a church home that has welcomed me with open arms and minds. In February of this year, I was ordained as a ruling elder, a moment in my life that I will never forget for many reasons, but mostly because God chose me and this church saw that call, and true to our confessions, let me in and helped God bring that call to me. And you've trusted me with some of the most important elements of our worship and the work that we do here. Now I serve on the session and chair the finance committee, which has me completely out of my wellhouse. I'm also on the committee that's planning our 25th year-long anniversary celebration, and 3 weeks ago, I delivered my first sermon here, and things have kicked into high gear. Much has happened in that short time between then and now. This coming Tuesday, I will begin a 14-week session with Princeton Seminary's online continuing education program to complete a certificate of theology and ministry. This may open additional opportunity, but for now, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I am right where I need to be. None of this would have been possible without the initial invitation, and the rest of it would not be possible without each and every one of you. As James states in the beginning of today's message, every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no variation or change. My deepest thanks to each and every one of you for helping me to open my eyes, for extending your hand in earnest love and grace, and for living your faith. A task that is not easy to do in today's world, and one that can, at times, seem too heavy to carry. I had been wandering and searching for an answer. I was unable to understand how I could have been made as I was, only to be asked to deny myself by the very faith that connected me to Christ and to the Creator, whomever he or she may be. That's fairly progressive thinking in my mind, especially in this part of the country, and I never thought I would find a home where I was perfectly fine just as I was. Every good and perfect gift is from above. Thank you for helping me and others among us and others within this community to find that, be open to it, and to receive it. James goes on to say, be doers of the word and not merely hearers who deceive themselves. For if there are any hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror, for they look at themselves and on going away immediately forget what they are like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers, but doers that act, they will be blessed in their doing. Is it ever enough to simply hear the word and say that we believe? It wouldn't have been enough to keep me coming back. Action speaks louder than words. Christiane had given me great background on the church as a whole and on this congregation, but I still came with my guard up until I sat down for examination by the session for granting membership to the church. There was no judgment, no discrimination, no fear. There was only love, understanding, compassion, and acceptance, coupled with a strong desire to help guide and nurture me and my faith. Folks, that's not only living faith by being doers of the word. That is bringing the good news of the gospel to life. I thought I had my sermon where I wanted it until after meeting with Andrew on Thursday. He liked my initial outline and message and provided some good direction. Reminded me that I was a little long-winded last Sunday. One thing that really stood out was that some of my themes were a little too universal, and how to relate them to a specific example that is not only impactful, but meaningful to this congregation. When I got back and really examined the text, everything fell apart on me. How do you build a message around this particular text to a congregation that is already a living and shining example of this lesson? Needless to say, I was without words, it was time to write, and I was without a sermon, because James makes his point very quickly. It's not enough to say that we follow Jesus and not live as he taught us to live. We are called to live our faith by doing the work of Christ that he came to teach us to do. And as I said before, in today's climate, in today's world, that's not easy. All we have to do is open up a news feed. I quickly put mine down and move on to other things. It is easy to get caught up in the rhetoric and traditions of our faith. It is something else entirely to live by that very same love and grace that both Christ Jesus and God gives to us. Then I realized why I hit my roadblock. I'm worried, and I expressed this to Christiane this morning, that I haven't lived up to that example, that I haven't lived the word with my own life. I've heard it, but I've allowed the outside world to influence me and to block it out. And I'm nervous, honestly, about starting the online program. It's been a long time since I've been in class. Will I contribute? Will I learn? What if I disagree with what I'm taught or discover? How will this change me? And you can imagine. So I reread part of my application. And in the application, I was asked to interpret Matthew 6, 5 through 14. This is where Christ tells us where and how to pray and gives us the Lord's Prayer. This is just a piece of that. We are called to keep him and his blessings in our lives, within our hearts and minds every day. It is through this faithful and deep inward personal connection that God's love and grace can be fully received, and we can grow into the lives of outward ministry for which he has called each of us to live. No matter what, if we can sit in the storm and find the quiet moments, he will hear our prayer. He will respond with love, grace, and peace that will make us whole. Jesus provides us a simple yet powerful blueprint to build our faith and relationship with the Creator. It is just that simple. Faith and belief are not a badge we earn or a public reward, but a right and true relationship with God comes first from within. That is where the work begins. And living this simple example, we open ourselves to become everything he placed us here to be. And in doing so, we show his love and grace to all who see us. We show our faith through our deeds, not just through our belief and our worship. Those are critical components. But living the faith makes all the difference. It is because this church has lived its faith that we are still here 125 years later. It is because this church has lived its faith that I was able to find a home here when I thought that home was lost forever. It is because this church has lived and will continue to live its faith that we will endure for another 125 years. May we continue, as James instructs us to do, to be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger, for our anger does not produce God's righteousness. And let us welcome the meekness of the implanted word that has the power to save us. When I look at this congregation today, over everything it has faithfully endured and worked through in the last 125 years, I see a vibrant body in the Lord and in Jesus who is living the true definition of the gospel and has brought that to life. For me, you'll never know the depths of that change. May it be so for all of us, now and always. Thanks be to God.